Let me start by saying there is nothing wrong with being rich and everything wrong with assuming people do everything superiorly simply because of it. Hi, I'm Kang, and this is Frankly K, where awareness and clarity means power. Here I do financial literacy videos, journal with me's, vlogs, and book reviews. So if that's interesting to you, please subscribe to become part of the party. Party of the first part. Let's talk about another concept in creating a healthy mindset around money and finances. That includes idealizing money, or the having of it versus not having much of it. I was watching YouTube, and a girl on YouTube made a short talking about how rich people wear designer clothes out loud because poor people just don't speak the language. I hesitate to add her video here because it's not about her, and she said nothing wrong, but I feel like I understood the video in a different way than the comments did, because her comments were saying stuff like, exactly, rich people don't wear flashy labels and blah blah blah. But all I heard when OP broke down her points and pieces was, so rich people do flaunt their wealth, like just like poor people do, and they especially trying to flash their wealth and let it be known to other rich people or like richer counterparts. Like, poor people wearing a LV outfit with an obvious label is the same as rich people that wear that Bottega slide with the red tassel or whatever, because they know that someone knows exactly what that shoe is. Leaving me to then think people love giving rich people credits they aren't due, because rich people do the same things poor people do but get praised for it because it looks different coming from them. That's not a good mindset to have. Like, when you're creating a healthy mindset around money, you don't want to start to idealize or idolize a certain tax bracket. You don't want to idealize a certain tax bracket because it puts less emphasis on why you're trying to make money and starts putting your whole reason and worth for living into making money. You want to start realizing why you want to make a lot of money. I think that would keep the balance between happiness and prosperity, because I'm not someone who believes that more money immediately equals more problems. I feel like more money equals more problems because people didn't have their actual life priorities straight before they got the money, or maybe they were born into the money, like a lot of top percenters are. They're born into this money, so they never really had a chance to figure out themselves without money, so to speak. So you'll probably see some of these people, they'll like cut themselves off from their parents or whatever because they want to find themselves outside of money. Idolizing rich people and making it like this is a better person because of the fact that they, like, all these things, they're an example to live by. Like, making rich people and whatever the fuck they do the example to live by, I think is inherently a problem. And it's part of the halo effect, where people use it for people with pretty privilege and people use it for, I think, economic privilege as well. So you've seen those videos stitched where some people actually address this, where it's titled things rich people do that would be considered trashy if poor people did it. It's like that. The internet, and especially financial TikTok, is like inundated with videos of people comparing even how to fucking walk like a rich person because they walk and talk better. People have actually taken the time to say that rich people walk slower and quieter because they have power and control, and poor people are always rushed. And no one thinks they're worth waiting for, but will bend over backwards for a rich person because they are programmed to think that rich person is important. Honestly, there's never been a time in history where people didn't idolize rich people. And maybe people don't want to admit the obvious because it makes them feel bad about wanting to be rich themselves. Which goes back to the mentality, because it's like, why? Why do you want to be rich? A lot of people want to be rich because they think life will be easier. They won't have any more money problems. And honestly, I feel like they're not wrong about that assumption. But a lot of other people get really convoluted as to what that means, because then after you solve those problems, do you live your life in your problems? You know what I mean? Like, is your problems your whole personality? Because once you get rid, you have to address that. because once you get rid of those problems, then you end up kind of just being a shell of a person, because now you've got all the money and all the material things, but you never addressed anything about yourself. And again, that's not to say don't make any money before you go become perfect. That's not how this works, and it goes against exactly what I'm saying, where just because you're rich doesn't mean you're perfect. You have all this access to things, but people are still troubled because of their own personal, situations, thoughts, the way they, excuse me, the way their brain works, etc. So you want to be able to address all of your issues, address your whys, address your wants and needs thoroughly as you are working yourself towards this money. And you might start to realize that maybe you're the type of person that really just wants to be comfortable. And I'm not talking people out of becoming millionaires, because some people, that's a great goal to have. You want to be a millionaire. You want to be able to do a bunch of stuff. You want to be able to, whatever it is you want to do with your million. You want to just sit on top of your money like that. What's his name? Scrooge McDuck. Who's that? The uncle, that rich uncle that dove into his pile of coins. You want to do that. As long as you have a solid understanding that being rich doesn't just automatically make you a better person, I feel like, that's the only thing I'm talking about here. I'm just saying being rich isn't going to make you a better person. You have to realize that rich people themselves are not an example for everyone. They're not an example of how to live an exemplary life. They're just people who have more stuff than everyone else, or more access to things than everyone else, simply because they are rich. It's like holding on to a fantasy. Some people can't bear to break that dream that there isn't some magical, perfect fairyland on the opposite side of struggle. Everything isn't just perfect over there, and they love to tell you that, but without even talking about themselves. They just say, many more problems, but they don't ever say the onus out loud starts inside. And this rich versus poor mentality has gotten so out of hand that it's even making it so that people will gladly become criminals in order to reach their first million. The amount of scams that people are telling you are legit business ways to become a millionaire on TikTok and Instagram is crazy. Not here to judge, I'm just here to warn. You could do with the information what you will, but don't say I didn't tell you that you was going to end up in jail. That's it. Get out of that fantasy of doing this rich versus poor thing. Honestly, it's not going to stop, because it's been going on for centuries. Before the internet, before everything, people have always idolized the rich. But if you're somebody who is trying to build a healthier mindset around your own money and your finances, starting with de-influencing yourself from rich people and rich versus poor content. This is your rich auntie telling you how to look expensive, all that shit. If it's something that you feel, it's not adding value to correcting your mindset around money. It's not adding value to that. It is teaching you how to maybe survive in the society that you're in, teaching you how to survive, because I know people who have certain jobs where presentation is everything. How you look, how you dress, how you act, how you talk, and it needs to look a certain way. So those kinds of things can be helpful for that, just so you can live your actual life. But if you're trying to build a healthy mindset around money and around yourself and around your own finances, and build a life that is uniquely yours, something that you actually are happy with day by day, it starts with taking the fantasy out of rich society, taking the fantasy out of them doing things that you also need to be doing because it's a better way to do stuff. No. One guy had a video where he was talking to someone, and he was talking about how much money he makes or whatever, and he says he's a millionaire, and I guess I have to believe it. If I told you I would sell you this bag for $1,000, what would you say? And the guy in the interview was like, no. And then he was like, see, that's a poor man's thinking. A rich man would ask me what's in it. There could be $100,000 in this bag. So now you've lost out on $999,000 or whatever. Because he went on and on and on to be like, rich people think about the value. They don't think about what it costs. And I was like, is he missing the cognitive piece? Like, he's missing a cognitive piece in his brain that tells him the reason why rich people think about what the value is versus what the cost is because they have the cost for whatever. If I, as the poor person who y'all keep telling me to live within my means, only has $1,000 for the month, my rent is $1,500. I'm already behind. You want me to spend $1,000 on an unsure thing, unless there really was $100,000 cash in that book bag, it's not worth it. What if it's something I have to sell to get $100,000? How long will it take for that $100,000 to come in when I sell it? Is it immediate? Is it something that I can get $100,000 for immediately, or is it worth $100,000? But I have to wait on it, sit on it. It's like an investment, like it's $100,000, like shares of a business. And so now I've spent my $1,000 for my rent on this investment. That can make me money down the line. But it was just a poor example of, it was oversimplifying something that is not that micro. It's not, because no one's selling you a book bag with $100,000 in it for $1,000. They want to sell you an e-course. They want to sell you a business license. They want to sell you all these things that can eventually make you money. But then you're out $1,000 right now. And you know who doesn't give a fuck about investments? Your bills. Your bills want to be paid yesterday. People have different things they're worried about. So if they're in a position to maneuver, then maybe a poor person will make that decision to think about, what is this about? To automatically think that a poor person is not thinking about value is wildly insane. Because the fact is, the values are different. There's a certain level of emergency that someone without a lot of monetary assets has. And that emergency does stop them from making these investments, taking these risks, because the risks do not outweigh the safety of now. You see what I'm saying? And if you don't see what I'm saying, then you can't make any comments about rich versus poor, because then you don't get it. And if you don't get it, you shouldn't be talking. I hope that just helps you reset just a little bit. Like, if it doesn't reset, I hope it jarred you a little bit. Like, oh no, maybe I do idolize, rich people and rich behavior. And for what? For what? To get rich? Because then what? That's why people feel so empty. They chase this fantasy, they get to that, and realize that their life and themselves is exactly the same. So, anyway, thanks for watching. Bye. Hi, it's a new day. I'm in a white shirt. I'm not wearing any makeup. I really wanted to come in here and talk about the whole Francesca's thing from a financial point of view instead of a drama point of view, which I love a drama point of view. I love watching commentary and drama channels. I feel like it's very interesting news, and sometimes very grave news that, I don't know, is just all, it seems like news. Keeping aware of current events, Francesca's is a really big chain store in the United States of America that you may or may not have heard of. I've seen it in passing. Never shopped there. It wasn't my aesthetic, I guess you could call it. So the point is, Francesca's is has already filed for bankruptcy, Chapter 11. Okay, as long as because it's, okay. So as long as I hold it properly, then we shouldn't have any more problems. But basically, so they're going through a Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and like I was trying to say, there's different types of bankruptcy, and Chapter 11 bankruptcy is one where they can still operate, but the person, like whoever bought them, is the one that gets all the money. So they're basically selling up to another person so that they can restructure and try to come out on the other side. Most of the time it doesn't happen given how severe the settling up is. And that's where it comes into play, because apparently Francesca owes money, lots of money to a lot of people who they had, like a lot of basically vendors who are also small businesses. So they weren't big business vendors that they owe money to. They might owe money to them too, but the small business vendors are more vocal, and they're individuals that are on like social media and are more willing to talk about it than maybe a bigger business is. And the whole reason why it's a big concern is because these vendors are owed tens of thousands, some hundreds of thousands of dollars from Francesca's, because they did a whole thing where the vendor gives the store the product and then they pay afterwards. And it's usually because they want to see how the inventory turnover is, and they don't want to make any losses, because in those situations, I think after a certain date, they only pay for what they've sold, basically. I used to vend for certain companies a lot. It was a lot more popular for bigger businesses to do a whole thing where they get paid up front for the products that they give out. But there's a catch. The catch is at the back end, after 30, 60 days, or even immediately, like whatever, like damages and things that don't sell can be shipped back to that vendor, and the store gets their money back. You're probably wondering, well, why didn't those small business people do that? It's better to get your money up front. Most of the time, it's because small business people are looking for exposure as well as the pay. And because a place like Francesca's, which was such a really big deal to the people who cared about them, and the fact is that they're getting into this really big store, and they don't have to worry about having to like pay them back on stuff. As a small business, it might be a little tighter for you to properly run your day-to-day operations because you have a limited amount of cash flow and things are a little more static and not as liquid as maybe a bigger business that can afford to process those returns from a big company coming in from all these stores. Like, we're talking about tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars in goods. So it's like processing all that. If there's any damages, processing that immediately would be a real challenge for a smaller business. Processing the fact that they return stuff, returns like of unsold goods, is a big deal. Like, the logistics behind that alone would be kind of burdensome for a small business. The business that is doing the relationship, like doing the contract with the small business, they might not want to. They might see it as a favor and taking a risk on this small business. So if the stuff doesn't sell, then they don't really have to pay them anything, and then they can work out what's going to happen with the inventory afterwards. The bigger vendor has a name that people are coming to the store to look for. The smaller vendor is looking to make a name while in the store. So that's the big difference. Oh, excuse me, my phone. It's sunny again. Anyway, there's different types of bankruptcy. It's about six. I put it here. And most of the times, if you hear a person filing for bankruptcy, they're probably going to be doing a Chapter 7, but we're not going to talk about any of those today. Keep in mind, I'm not a bankruptcy expert. This is just from the research that I've done in the past when I first heard that there was more than one bankruptcy, and then the research I did while I was looking up this Francesca thing. Take what I'm saying lightly, but I'm trying my best to break down the information here as I've understood it with what I do know. Individuals usually aren't going to do a Chapter 11. It's mostly corporations, and I feel like because of the nature of a Chapter 11, an individual wouldn't be able to qualify for it anyway, unless that individual owns a sole proprietorship, and that sole proprietorship is what is being filed for bankruptcy. Because in the case of a sole proprietorship, business-wise, you are one and the same with your business. You're not a separate entity. And so when your business is getting judged for its assets and stuff, you have to include your personal assets and everything. If you have a partnership, that's different. And if you're a corporation, then it's different. In my personal opinion, a sole proprietorship is best for a small business, a shop or something that you can manage by yourself. You got it under control. You're not thinking about expansion too greatly or anything like that, where you would probably come into undue liability, or not undue, but like, liabilities that, require a wider range of help, just because it might be a little burdensome for, one person. Back to the point. The point is that Francesca's is doing a Chapter 11, and that is for corporations, sole proprietorships, and partnerships. Francesca's is a corporation, and so their owners and stuff, they don't have to put their personal assets or none of their personal assets are up for sales, or, they don't have to, report them unless it's like company stock, because then it's still part of the company assets. What happens is that the owners and like the people who run Francesca's now have to become like trustee, what they called it, trustee, like fiduciaries or something like that. They called it that, but basically they become like a private eye for the people who bought their company, or for the courts that are going through the paperwork so that someone is buying their company, and they have to gather all the information. They have to report, make reports of all of their financial assets, any creditors or debts that they, owe. And that would include these small businesses. Now, if they've been doing their books honestly, there shouldn't be a problem. But we don't ever assume the worst, right? But we prepare for it. So just in case they start to they might underclaim some credits, which is illegal. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you all the illegal things that they might be able to do. The point is they need to claim all of those debts that they have, those outstanding bills and everything are something you need to claim. And that is important because during this time period, apparently there's a very slim time period in a Chapter 11 court proceedings where creditors, people owed money by the person filing or by the corporation filing a Chapter 11 can, basically send in their paperwork and put up like, they owe me money. They have to have proof and everything, which for a small business shouldn't be hard, because I'm absolutely sure these people have been keeping all the proper invoices, because that's how they've been able to, tell us that they're owed money. Basically, with all those invoices and stuff. And they probably already know this, but if they didn't, I hope that they have someone around them that will tell them. But they can file at a certain time period. You file and you tell the courts, basically, Francesca owes me money. I am one of its creditors, and they will be affected. Now the judgment into how they get that money back, I'm not entirely sure, but I was reading through the debtor in possession part of a Chapter 11, and the part that stood out to me, it said that the debtor, right, in this case Francesca's, could take out more loans. It is, I know that this Chapter 11 is so that they can get back on their feet and like restructure and work it out. But I feel like the only thing that they should be taking out loans for, if they do at all, like if I was somebody, I know it doesn't sound like a good idea, trying to restructure and taking out another loan, possibly to consolidate. I think that is the biggest thing, and maybe the only thing that they should be doing, taking out a loan to consolidate the debts that they actually are outstanding right now, so that they can pay everyone off in full and then get back to like making money and then repaying just one single solitary debt. And I'm sure they have like, there's a reason why corporations have all these people and they've got somebody in there making a plan, because you have to submit a plan, kind of like a Chapter 13 with an individual. You have to submit like a repayment plan, so I'm sure they have to submit a repayment plan as well. But like, in my opinion, I feel like that's what they should do. The only new loan they should apply for is like a debt consolidation loan. Pay off all those debts and then get back to business, because under Chapter 11 they can still operate every store that they own. This is ignorance at its finest. I was doing all that talking and the mic went out. In addition to that, in the case of Chapter 11, they have to be basically evaluated by a team of its creditors. So like the creditors that they owe the most money to, I believe, what did it say? It says 7. Let me just read it. Where is it? The ordinary consists of unsecured creditors who hold the 7 largest unsecured claims against the debtor. They do have a committee like that, and I think it's to ensure that that committee can see transparently what's going to be happening to their money. There is some hope for the creditors to get their money back, these small business owners to get their money back, as long as they stay on top of the proceedings, which is probably really hard for them to do because it's a small business. You only have so many resources, but maybe some of them have some sort of a lawyer or something. And this actually taught me something as well. Like, if I'm going to be doing vendor business and in the future, or if I'm going to, which is kind of the plan, I think I would opt for trying to push for the upfront payment and then, have it so that anything that's not sold, like net 30 or net 60, but in reverse. So like anything that's not sold, they can send it back to me for a refund on the goods. But that would also include damages. And so I would have to do like the math on that, like really figure out if that's even beneficial for where my business is at the moment. Like when I decide to do those things, I would push for that. But I could completely understand somebody doing what these small businesses did and basically just having their payment held until like 30, 60, maybe 90 days. I can completely understand that because it's actually, in the long run, for their situations, it is a smarter way to do it because there's less back and forth. There's less you have to work on, and you can basically just work on your business. Oh, so like, because even in chapter 11, there's a subchapter 5. They were saying that I think it's more geared towards if you're a small business or maybe that sole proprietorship case, because I told you it could be corporate, sole proprietor, or a partner that does a chapter 11. It might be in the case of a sole proprietor because, that would most likely be a small business, and they give them a little more help, I should say, while filing this chapter 11. It's also faster, most likely because you don't have as much or as many assets to like have to go through, and as many things like as a corporation to like, figure out, liquidate and restructure. You're not going to have all that needs to be done. So they said it's a lot faster. They also said that the debtor themselves has to come in for an interview, and basically the court outlines everything that they need to do. The U.S. trustees are going to help walk you through that thing. They're the committee overseeing the committee of people who are watching them try to make a reorganization plan. In the case of this chapter 11, there is hope for the small businesses of Francesca's as long as they stay on top of the case proceedings. Now, I wouldn't jump to like just saying, oh my God, Francesca's is a scammer, because it sounds like there was just some misplanning. While they're making very bad moves right now in the eyes of people who they owe money to, it really is because they were most likely expanding too fast. And what that means is that they were probably doing a lot of things on credit, hoping that it would balance itself out as they continued to operate. But instead, maybe they weren't recovering funds as fast. Everyone says they were valued at $1 billion. I didn't go fact check that. But if it's true, that means nothing. Like, they were valued at $1 billion does not mean that they were making $1 billion a year or anything like that. They were valued $1 billion probably through real estate alone. When you're evaluating a company, part of it is your assets, and assets can be something like real estate, even if you don't fully own that real estate. It's just because the place, if you have like paid on it, if they were leasing it, it might not count. But if they were like mortgaging some of these places, like some of the buildings, like, then that counts as an asset. So I don't know if they were mortgaging or leasing most of their properties, but that could have been one of the main reasons why they were able to get their valuation up to $1 billion. They were probably including their inventory in their valuations. So, and like stuff that they don't even own yet, technically, because they still owe people money. But hopefully they get their money. I hope they become somebody from a small business ends up on the board, but maybe they won't, because it's probably going to be like, if they did mortgages that helped them valuate at $1 billion, it's probably going to be various mortgage companies that are going to be on their creditors committee, because those would be the larger debts. Anyway, Texas is entering the stock exchange game. And let me know, would any of you enter the Texas Stock Exchange? Do any of you feel like you want to see what it is they're talking about? Like, how are they gonna get their stocks? Who's gonna list with them? I mean, in order to get a stock exchange, you have to go through an extensive amount of stuff, especially with the Securities and Exchange Commission. So, I'm wondering, like, will anyone trust Texas? Is anyone excited? People from Texas, are you excited? Anyway, that's news. That's new news and some stuff and a talk. So I hope things go well with the Texas stocks. I'm looking forward to see where it goes, how far it goes, who will list with them, et cetera, et cetera. I hope everything gets settled. With Francesca, I think the biggest thing is to make sure you're on the creditors list with the right amount. Like, get in there, start filing your, I don't know what it's called, an injunction. I don't know. But anyway, what do I know? Bye.